Okay, if this video seems rushed, then that's because it kind of is. I only got to see the fifth episode on Tuesday, and I had to leave out of town on Thursday while also leaving my laptop behind. So yes, this video was done in 2 days, the same way how most Rec reviews Batwoman, except without the attitude. But luckily thanks to the last week's episode, I have found a format how to make these reviews, so now I know what I'm doing. Let's go with the plot summary, the fan service, and my final thoughts for this episode. We begin once again with another flashback from 9 years before the present, to Rex Tyler writing those JSA files we saw Pat having in the first episode and leaving his son Rick with his wife's brother to look after, before Solomon Grundy kills the moth. In the present, Rick has grown up to be an angry young man working on a car in his free time, and whose relationship with his uncle Matt is comparable to Donald Duck and Scrooge McDuck in Egmont published Donald Duck comic books. The next scene is a butterfly effect of Courtney being woken up by her brother Mike, her mother Barbara, and the family dog. I call it butterfly effect because her room is left in a state where the rest of the episode could happen. Basically, the JSS stuff almost gets discovered by her mom, and she has to take the large bag holding them to her school. Pat almost catches Courtney with the bag of JSA stuff, but Courtney is able to explain it without revealing its contents. After dropping the subject and changing it, Pat shares with his suspicions of the wizard being Joey's father and how he now thinks that the entire family was killed by the Justice Society after finding the widowed mother's wrecked car. Pat now agrees with Courtney about the ISA hiding in the Blue Valley, and Courtney shares her doubts about the violin fiddling principal being one of them, just barely hiding the fact how she saw the private concert between her and Brainwave. After stuffing everything into her locker at school, Courtney talks with Yolanda about the ISA and other possible recruits. At this point, I acknowledge that talking aloud in a populated hallway would be a stupid idea because that's how you get eavesdropped on. But they are keeping their voices low enough so that they can be mixed with the other people's chatter, meaning that the only ones who would be able to hear them are the people actively trying to listen to them, like Beth Chapel. The gambler meets an informant at the theater, the one that Barbara must have convinced Icicle to rebuild in episode 3. The intel he pays for with money and chocolate is about a shipment coming to the town at the dark of the night. The day goes by fast, as in the next scene we see Courtney with Pat having picked her up from school and having car trouble. Rick shows up and shares with some of his knowledge about cars while helping Pat, and in his presence, our man's hourglass in Courtney's bag begins to react. Because of this, Courtney decides to ditch Pat to shadow Rick. Rick probably lets her do it up until they reach the woods and confronts her there for being a stalker. Nothing comes to this, probably because they walked for over an hour and the hourglass doesn't work anymore. During this hour, Beth has gone to Courtney's house and talked her way inside by telling Barbara and Mike that she is Courtney's friend. While being allowed to wait, Beth notices the family dog chewing on DrMidnite's goggles, which it got from the bag in the earlier scene before Courtney moved everything else to her locker. After getting the goggles from the dog, Beth puts them on while going to Courtney's room, and they are revealed to have a built in artificial intelligence of Charles McNider, the original Dr. Midnite, who reads us Beth's character sheet as an info dump. When Courtney comes home to find Beth in her room with the goggles, she gets caught lying and about calling Yolanda by her name in the previous episode. The goggles then read Courtney's shoes that having gone to see Rick and reveal that Rick is the son of Hourman. Way later, after Courtney ditches Pat to shadow Rick, Pat decides to go meet Rick and offer him a car part the young man mentioned needing for the car he is building. He only meets Uncle Matt, posing as Rick's father, and gets told that Rick is not home because he is elsewhere selling liquor to underage teenagers and threatens them with violence to pay him 300 for the booze. Nighttime comes with the doors singing People are strange when you're a stranger, and the episode dating itself to October 21st as This is Halloween, Courtney and Yolanda follow Beth Chief's body, where Dr. Midnight's goggles have managed to track Rick's phone to be located. Because Brainwave Jr. is there, Yolanda refuses to go inside. Beth probably passes as a guest with the goggles as her costume, and Courtney borrows a mask from a partygoer who has drank too much. However, this partygoer is left to lay in the recovery position, so unless anyone steps on him, he should be fine. After witnessing Shiv chastising her friend for wearing the same costume as she is, and Brainwave Jr. for being too hung up on his father being in the hospital, Courtney finds Rick by the pool and tells him about the JSA with Yolanda and Beth. They give him the Hourman's hourglass, and Beth explains through the goggles how it gave Rick's father powers for 1 hour per day, while also working for Rick due to being tied to his DNA. Trying it on, Rick does get powers like super strength, but as he has been raised by his uncle like the Italian version of Donald Duck, he decides to keep it and leaves without joining up with the girls. Naturally, Courtney and Yolanda need to chew it up in going after Rick, while telling Beth to go home. Walking around with the hourglass, Rick sees his uncle Matt harassing a waitress in a bar and decides to express his hatred for the man by totaling his pickup truck before moving on satisfied. Courtney and Yolanda catch up with Rick in the woods in costumes, and Rick reveals they are at the site where his parents' car accident happened. He explains that his anger seen throughout the episode comes from not having an outlet to focus it on, as he believes it to have been an accident, and the unchanneled rage is poisoning him from the inside. Talking Rick down is also impossible, as he is clearly a damaged person, and Courtney realizes that she cannot let him keep the hourglass. Before the situation escalates, Beth shows up to use Dr. Midnight's goggles to show how Rick's parents were really killed by Solomon Grundy, and this information prompts Rick to begrudgingly join the Infinity Inc. inspired team up. The character development for him better fix Rick in the upcoming episodes, and I hope that the DC Universe has cast an actor for Liberty Bell, who Rick is happily married to in the comics. The final scenes of the episode show us the gambler and Cordy's principal revealed to be the new Fiddler, hijacking the shipment foreshadowed earlier in the episode. Pat is also shown doing two things: getting called to take Uncle Matt's totaled car to his garage to fix, and discovering Alan Scott's Green Lantern battery glowing in Courtney's room, revealing to the stepfather what his stepdaughter has been doing for the last two episodes. This episode was written by Melissa Carter, and I am not familiar with her past writing credits. However, as we have gone through 5 episodes by now, I think I have begun to recognize a pattern. As Jeff Johns has been credited as the showrunner, the executive producer, and the show's developer for television, I believe he has written guidelines for the other writers to go through, and that way made sure that every episode goes through as if he had written them. It's also too early to say anything about another observation, so I'll bring it up in the next video if it's what I think. As I mentioned in the plot summary, this episode dates the show to the current year of 2020 by being set in Halloween and letting us know that Beth was born in 2004. So much for the timelessness I praised in the first 2 episodes, but now there is even more questions to be answered in the next episode, as the Justice Society seems to have been indeed founded in the 1940s, as Dr. Midnite, aka Charles McNider, is confirmed to have been born in 1914, meaning that he was 96 years old when he died in the flashbacks in the first episode. How? How? Without Crisis on Infinite Earths rebooting and Zero Hour creating retcons, how was this made possible? The next episode is titled Justice Society of America, and I hope it will give us a huge lore dump in explaining this. Then there is the thing I called out in Courtney's first scene by calling it a butterfly effect, which makes this episode's pacing feel rushed. But otherwise, if I'm right about Jeff Johns having shared guidelines for the writers, this season's plot might have an understandable plot progression going from point A to point B to point C to point D. Thank you, Josh Brolin from the 2000 Hourman movie, for sharing this allegory. Okay, after the load of fan service we got in the last episode, now it's done a little more sparingly. Small episodes of this include, while shadowing Courtney and Yolanda, Beth almost slips into wet floor being mopped by Sir Justin, the school's janitor, who warns her about there being dragons in the water. I'm not spoiling anything else about him, but I hope to see him as who I think he is. Red Bee, a very old comic book character from the Golden Age, is used as an example why superheroes should not talk to each other with their real names when in costume. He is also said to have died in 1959. Brainwave Jr.'s psionic powers seem to be activating in this episode during Shiv's party when he hears more noise than usual in a party, and what Yolanda thinks about him from across the street. The fact that DrMidnite's goggles have a built-in artificial intelligence talking to Beth can be seen as a nod to Infinity Inc. run and her debut, where she started out as a medical student working under Charles McNider. And that's all I got. Again, this episode was made quickly in a rushed manner because I had to get it done by Thursday morning. I hope it was worth it by the time I come back on Sunday. So, until I get back and until we get to the next episode, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and may your heart be your guiding key.